Earlier today, a student asked me about how to think in another language. And we discussed this a little bit to figure out the difficulty with this approach and also the possible intention behind this advice. But what this student lacked was an explanation and some guidance about how to apply this advice. So to give you an idea of a potential problem here is, let's say I'm an English speaker and I want to learn Spanish and I want to say, I'm going to eat. Now I may have learned a structure like estoy yendo and would expect to say, okay, estoy yendo a comer. However, if I do actually say this to people who speak Spanish, they probably won't understand me or they'll be confused because I'm using, intuitively, I'm using a model from English, I'm going to. So literally translating from word to word into another language is not going to be an effective approach for thinking in another language. So the people will not understand the intention behind that. They might be a little confused. So what I need to do is observe the language, see models of people using this. I'm not going to intuitively discover this structure on my own. So for example, if I ask you to draw a portrait painting, but you've never seen one before, how are you supposed to know how to do that? So what I would suggest doing is to observe situations where people are trying to express a similar intention, listen to how they say it, listen to their intonation, listen to the structure, use the words they use, and try to copy that, try to observe it and listen to it, pay attention to it, and copy it a couple times, and even experiment with changing one or two things slightly, and that would be experimenting with it. And I think that's the intention of trying to think in another language. But what you need to do first is observe it with language models, structures, which Stephen Krashen would call comprehensible input. And then from there, you can start experimenting with small, subtle changes with those structures to personalize it for your own intentions. But first, you need to be observing and listening with something to read or spoken content from that language before you can start experimenting with it and adapting it for your own language needs.